Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts for today. My name is Memo, and today I've got my co-host right here via Discord, Hoops.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hoops, and I am very excited to start this awesome podcast with my partner, Memo. And we're going to start out by introducing our agenda for the podcast.
Yeah, so basically, what we're gonna be doing, for this very first podcast is just explaining who we are, what we do, uh, explaining what this podcast is going to be about. And then towards the second half, we're going to do our predictions. So we're going to go over predictions for the end of the season awards and even the finals predictions. Who do we personally believe is going to win it all this year? But we could, before we do all that, I think we should go over like who we are, since this is our very first episode. Um, most most likely no one's gonna know who we are unless somehow the people from my personal YouTube channel is here. Then shout out to you guys. I do have a YouTube channel where I cover music related content. As you can see, I have music stuff everywhere. I have a record player, records over here. I talk about music all the time. I react to uh, albums and songs. I do videos about vinyl records, stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, I'll put my links down below. But yeah, uh, music is not my only passion. I do love basketball. We both love basketball a lot. That's kind of how we became friends. We became friends in middle school, right? We were
Yep.
in a basketball clinic. I think that's the very first time we met. Is that right, or some other time?
I think that we met by first playing some pickup basketball during lunch/recess.
Uh huh.
Actually, when we joined the basketball clinic, that's when we got a lot closer because I think it was like only five people in the clinic. So, you kind of have to interact with the few people that were there. So I think that was when eventually got like cl as close as we could have been or starting our true friendship, shall we
Yeah,
say.
I think that was the start, but I think we became like closer, like best friends in like high school. Like I think my junior year, your sophomore
Definitely.
year, sometime like that.
Yeah, it was I believe you're right. Your junior year and my sophomore year.
And we became friends from not only loving basketball but being huge Lakers fans. As you can tell, we both got our Lakers hats today. Uh, yeah, I've been a Lakers fan all my life. My grandpa was a huge Lakers fan, so that's why I'm a huge Lakers fan. Is there a reason why you're like a diehard Lakers fan instead of a Clippers fan?
Yeah, so the first NBA game I watched was actually the Lakers versus the Houston Rockets game 5 of the 2009 NBA playoffs. Um and we destroyed the Rockets in game 5, I remember. But what really caught my interest in basketball and the Lakers, mostly because I really loved the speed of the game and it was very fun and entertaining to watch. And on top of that, like seeing how good of team ball the Lakers played, like back then with Kobe, Pau Gasol, Derek Fisher, Lamar Odom,
I love
Andrew
that team.
Bynum, and those guys. That was a really fun team to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw just how good that team was. I'm like, man, it would be my dream if I could play in the NBA one day. And though that clearly didn't happen, I still love to hoop and I also love to watch basketball. And a true blessing of mine is that my first 2 years as a Lakers fan, I was able to witness the back-to-back championships.
Yeah.
And starting with the championship against Orlando in 2009, that one was really good because coming off the tough loss in '08 against the Celtics, which I did not witness because I hadn't watched basketball yet, and probably for the better good because we lost pretty badly in that one. But the way seeing how the Lakers came back was a vengeance, especially from Kobe's killer mentality, was very inspirational because like stuff like that, being able to come back with a vengeance is super good and relatable even outside of like sports, like in real life. You do bad in on one exam or you're like you have one bad day at work, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You can bounce back the next day and things will for sure get better. So that one was very cool to watch. But even better was in 2010 when we got our redemption for 2008 against the very same team, the Boston Celtics. And obviously, like the Lakers had to face a lot of adversity in that series,
Mm-hmm.
being down 3-2 after losing a tough two straight tough games in Boston, and they had to win two straight, do or die. They Lakers did just that, and Game 7 especially was great story of making sure not to quit until the very end because like Kobe had a pretty poor shooting performance that game, and the Lakers really did not do very good until like the mid third quarter as they went down by like 13 points from what I recall. So then unlikely comebacks and the unlikely superhero in that game in Ron Artest, aka
Yeah,
Meta
Meta
World
World
Peace,
Peace.
really helped fulfill the Lakers' comeback dreams in getting the revenge from 2010. And though Kobe did not have a good shooting performance, he excelled in other aspects of the game.
Yeah, did
Like
he get like a crazy
from what
amount of
I recall,
rebounds
he did.
for
From
a
what I
shooting
recall,
guard?
he was really good. Yeah, definitely. From what I recall, he was doing like pretty good on the rebounding, and I'm pretty sure he also played some good defense too. So that was definitely a heart of a champion, and I'm glad I was able to witness the last championships of Kobe's career at least, because I was too young to witness the first
Mm-hmm.
three.
Same.
Um, and then eventually, there was a lot of dark years for the Lakers in those rebuild seasons. But then after that, 2018, LeBron James comes to the Lakers and gave us hope once again. And though the first season wasn't good, um, after we were able to trade for Anthony Davis, we won the championship in the 2019-2020 season, which was also really fun. And obviously, since then, the Lakers have had a few tough seasons. But last year, we had a pretty good turnaround, going from 2-10 to the conference finals. So I have hope that we can win one this year, hopefully, as long as we can stay healthy and we have good chemistry.
I hope so. There's two things I want to mention really quickly. First of all, uh, a big reason why I wanted to do this podcast with you is because I know how your memory works when it comes to basketball. You are like very detailed. You know a lot about what's happened in the past, and you just have a great memory, which I'm not like that. I forget a lot of things, and you go into great detail. So I think uh, this podcast would only work if we work together like this. Yeah, so uh, yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention. And another thing I do want to mention how like my very first memories of being a Lakers fan was during the 2010s finals. You mentioned the 2009s. Mine was the 2010s, more specifically Game 7. I remember sitting in my living room in Game 7 watching the game. I remember my mom was like freaking out about foul calls and stuff. And I was like in the inside. I wouldn't say it out loud since immigrant mother. She if I said what I wanted to say, she wouldn't be too happy. But I remember like in my head, I was like can you be quiet, please? I'm trying to watch the game. But yeah, as soon as the Lakers won that game, I remember my grandpa calling from Guatemala. That's where he's from, and we just celebrated together through the phone. So we kind of had like a similar, I guess, introduction to basketball and the Lakers by watching those awesome Kobe teams going at it and winning chips. But yeah, so we're both huge basketball fans, both huge Lakers fans. We're gonna make sure we're not too biased, but we're obviously gonna be too. We're gonna be a little biased. Not gonna lie, but yeah, we met in middle school. We went to the same high school. We also went to the same community college and university. I got an associate's degree in mathematics when I was at community college, and in university, I switched majors a bit and I ended up getting my bachelor's in child adolescent development this past spring. Um, you did not go to the same directions I did, obviously. Like, we both decided on different career paths. So, what were your majors? Just so the people know.
Yes. Yeah, so while at the university, I majored in graphic design and I also minored in marketing. Um, Currently, I am working in the realm of marketing and sales. Actually, in China right now for a business trip at the moment. If you guys can tell, by this hotel setting in the background, um, I pretty much within the last year, I've pretty much been like switching a few jobs as a recent graduate. It's it's kind of a transition trying to find a good fit after firstly graduating. So I switched a job in between and right now um it seems like things are starting to um transition in the right direction. So hopefully this will be the job of right fit and I can finally be able to rest a little bit more knowing that I have a job that's stable.
Yeah, I was definitely not in your same position because uh, Hoops did graduate a year before I did. So my job search wasn't as long. But yeah, currently I'm in the field of education. I've been working in the education for a while, but I just started a new job this year, and hopefully I can keep going to school and progressing, so I could get better jobs. But yeah, I'm not in China right now. We don't have the same job. He's in China. I'm currently in California. We're both from SoCal, and yeah, it's kind of this this whole thing happened like out of nowhere. You kind of got the job like 3 4 weeks ago, right?
About to be 4 weeks, yeah. Kind of out of nowhere, honestly. Things didn't really come as expected per se. Had done the job 2 weeks in the US, and then my boss already had me going abroad for a business trip. I've been in China for 1 week so far, and going to be here for just under a month remaining. So it's definitely a good stay, but I think that it's a good learning experience because I haven't really gone far from home much, like without my parents. In general, like in fact, I really haven't even gone out of the country alone without my parents. So this is definitely a first, and I think it's definitely a good learning experience both for work and trying to gain extra independence. So it should be a fun ride.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, what was I gonna say? Oh, okay. So yeah, again, this happened like out of nowhere. We've been planning to do this podcast for a while. The first like thoughts about having a podcast happened when we were both in community college. We even tried to make a YouTube channel. We filmed something. We filmed a few videos, but never really launched it. And because of school and work, it's kind of hard to do that. But since we're both currently not doing school, we're just working, we thought to give it a shot and start this podcast. And this podcast, the purpose of this podcast, you might be wondering. Um, so basically, it's this podcast is called the Above the Rim Podcast. No, that's wrong, isn't it? Uh, what is it? Oh, the Above the Rim Rundown. That's the name of the podcast because we are gonna run down all things NBA every week. We're gonna be talking about the standings, uh, the players that have been basically exploding, who've been killing it, who have not been killing it, certain story headlines, uh, certain news that revolves around NBA. I think I already said standings, but standings, just giving everybody a weekly update on what's going on in the NBA. And we're gonna shoot for like an hour 30 each episode. I don't like super long podcasts, like 3 hour podcasts. I feel like is insane. That's basically like a college lecture at that point. But
Yeah.
yeah, the goal every week is just to talk about the NBA from the past week. The NBA is starting soon. I believe this Tuesday for me. We are currently recording for, I guess my what is it time? Uh, what is it?
It just struck midnight, I see.
Yeah, it for me it is midnight. It is
So
October. It
it's practically Sunday for both of us now.
Yeah, it's October 22nd for me, midnight. Like it's 12:01 a.m. for me. Uh, what's the date and time for you right now?
It is 3:01 p.m. also on Sunday here for me in China.
Yeah, so the the
15
seasons
hour
of
difference.
yeah, there's a 15-hour
Kind of crazy.
difference. It's insane. It was hard scheduling this, but I'm glad we're
It was.
finally
Yeah,
getting
I'm
it
glad we're
done.
able to finally do it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the so again, for both of us, it's October 22nd. The season starts on Tuesday, which is the 23rd? No, 24th, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's coming up very
24th.
soon, so we're gonna have a lot to talk about by next week. I'm hoping to make this podcast go up every Monday. That's the goal. Upload a, an episode every Monday, and it's not just like a video podcast on YouTube. I'm trying to make it like a thing, I'm trying to make it on upload these audio podcasts on Spotify, Apple, probably other um, platforms you could listen to podcasts. We have different social medias that we're gonna start making content for, like TikTok, Twitter, um, Instagram. So all of that stuff is gonna be linked down below if you want to check them out. But yeah, that's basically the goal of the podcast. And occasionally we're gonna do like some fun episodes, like our top 10 favorite Lakers of all time, or I don't know, like what's a good fun example? What's an episode you would like to do in the future if we have the time?
Let's see. We could do the greatest players for maybe like the top 10 players per position of all time. Like we can do a top 10 point guards, top 10 shooting guards, top 10 small forwards, top 10 power forwards, top 10 centers.
That's a
We
good
can
one.
even do something we can even do something like greatest six men in NBA history,
Ooh,
and potentially maybe actually maybe we can even say like necessarily different players, but we could even say like for example 2018 Lou Williams, 2019 Lou Williams, or like 2013 Jamal Crawford, 2015 Jamal Crawford, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that could potentially be like an option there. And then other stuff I'm sure we'll think of as we come along the journey.
Yeah, we could also make TikToks revolving around more fun topics like that as well as we continue. But yeah, everything will be linked down below. Our socials, my socials. I don't know if you want to put your socials in the description, but we could talk about that later. I'm down to put it if you want it. But I think that's it for just introducing ourselves and introducing our podcast. So I think from here we could go over our very early NBA end of the year award predictions. So we have several different awards that we're gonna go over, and we're also gonna talk about who we think are gonna win the finals. But yeah, we're gonna start with Coach of the Year since I feel like that's one of the more boring awards. Not gonna lie. So, Hoops, who do you think is gonna win Coach of the Year for the 2023-2024 season?
So looking at the predictions of possible candidates for Coach of the Year, these are some of the candidates that I put down. I put down Mike Dagnall for OKC. I think that the Thunder last year they were very close to making the playoffs, but unfortunately just fell short due to a few bigger heavyweights in the conference. I think it's the year that they're gonna get over the hump and they're gonna get in. So I think that he's definitely an option. Another option I was thinking was Willie Green for the Pelicans. Last season, the Pelicans were the first seed when they were healthy up until early January, I believe. So that was a pretty good run. But then unfortunately, injuries hit that team, like Zion getting hurt again, and Ingram got hurt too, I believe. And then a bunch of other guys got hurt too. So they ended up dropping a lot, unfortunately. They still were able to make the play in, but lost. So that was unfortunate for them. But I think that if the Pelicans are able to stay healthy, they have the potential to for sure make the playoffs, and Willie Green could be a candidate for Coach of the Year. Um, Another candidate I had was Adrian Griffin for the Bucks. Now I know that Milwaukee was already really good, so that one might be kind of hard for him to win it. But if he per se like is able to really impress, for example, like leading Milwaukee to like a record breaking or like a groundbreaking record or something like maybe leading the league in like defensive categories or like high scoring in offense. Maybe he could be an option there, especially knowing like the disappointment that they went through last year. Although I know that it is a regular season award and not a playoffs award, I think that if he clearly shows several signs of improvement in different categories for the Bucks team last year, then he could be an option. Another option I had was Nick Nurse for Philly. As we know, Philly is usually that one team that is always really good in the regular season, but when it comes to playoffs, they lose in like the strangest ways possible.
They're chokers.
And definitely, and a lot of the reason was due to Doc Rivers, for sure. But even before Doc Rivers, when they had Brett Brown as head coach, it seemed to be no different than what they went through with Doc. But I think that for sure, biggest factor is gonna be Joel Embiid's health because he does get injured quite a lot. Aside from that, James Harden's his situation about wanting to be traded is definitely has the potential to being a very big distraction. Hopefully, they're able to resolve something and just move forward and stay together. And I think that if they do, Philly for sure be at the top of the conference. But if they're gonna have like issues going into the season, and let's say Harden decides to sit out, then that's gonna be a tough barrier for the Sixers to go with. But that being said, if they're able to overcome all of that, I think that Nick Nurse would for sure be a candidate to receive praise for getting the team through all those hard times and hard situations. But I also had a dark horse, and that would be Darko Rajakovic from Toronto, or however you say his name. Now, I don't necessarily know how good the Raptors will be this season, but if they do find a way to sneak into the playoffs, I think that he should be one of those candidates. Kind of like last year when Mike Brown led a very unexpected Kings team to the playoffs. If Toronto's able to do something similar, then I think that Darko would for sure be an option. Um, but that being said, at the end of the day, if I were to pick one coach that I think will win the award, I think that would have to be Mike Dagnall from OKC. Simply due to the fact that this team hasn't been good for a long time. The last time they made the playoffs was in 2019-20 when they had Chris Paul, and the first year they traded away Westbrook and Paul George, and that team was very unexpectedly in the playoffs. Um, but I but the last time they were a threat was the year before that when they still had Paul George and Russell Westbrook on the team. Now, I think that this is the year that the OKC is eventually going to get over the hump and make the playoffs. And whether expected or not, though I think a lot of people do believe that they will make the playoffs now, I think that Dagnall will win the award because this team will finally make the step forward. So, Memo, what is your prediction for Coach of the Year for 2023-24?
Before I get into that, I do want to like quickly talk about your predictions and like the list of coaches you mentioned, because there's a few that I definitely agree with, and then a few I don't agree with. I do think Mike is gonna have a very good chance of winning the award with Chet Holmgren being on the team now, and the OKC were a decent team. They were pretty good, and I think with Shea being as good as he is, their young core being as good as they are, Chet coming in, I think they will do a lot better next year, and will help Mike become coach of the year. I don't have faith in the Pelicans though. They're like always injured. They have a few players now that are injured that won't be starting this season. So I don't think Willie Green is gonna win it. Adrian Griffin. Who's he again? Who the
Milwaukee, you head
Milwaukee?
coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually rookie coaches don't win it, so I don't think
It's rare.
yeah, it's kind of rare. Nick Nurse, if he could pull off the miracle, because I'm like 1,000% sure the 76ers are gonna be a mess, and if he
Yeah,
somehow is able to turn that team around, whether they trade Harden or not only does he deserve the coach of the year, he probably deserves a Nobel Prize, honestly, if he can help to turn things around. Uh,
definitely.
and then Darko, that's definitely a pretty, like, that's a dark horse pick for sure. I don't have faith in the Raptors. I think Pascal, my bad, Siakam, I don't think he's very happy being there. I think they might have another pretty bad season, honestly. But I think Darko's gonna provide some good vibes, honestly. So we'll see, we'll see. But your choice of for coach of the year, Mike, I think that's a really good pick. I think he's up there for me. He really is. When it comes to coach of the year, I feel like they either give it to the coach that has like the best team. So that's why in my like short list I have uh, Michael Malone, Joe Mazzulla, um, uh, coaches like that are probably gonna have great teams, even though they might not be the best coaches. They're most likely gonna have the best teams. But usually, when it comes to coach of the year, it goes to the coach who, as you said, like Mike Brown, who has like the previous years they might not be that good, but then they jump another level. So that's why in my short list I have Jamal Mosley, who is the coach of the Magic. I think the Magic could be a play-in team this year.
Pretty good.
They have pretty good young core, so I could see them as long as they continue progressing. I could see them being in the play-in and improving. Mike is definitely in the conversation as we both talked about. But my dark horse pick, which I think honestly I might go with, is Quinn Snyder for the Atlanta Hawks, because the Hawks, although
That's a good one.
they did barely make the playoffs last year. It was kind of a disappointing year for the Hawks, especially with like the experimentation of Dejounte Murray and Trey Young being together. Trey Young wasn't really uh, at his best the whole season, not being as good of a shooter as he's proven to be. And I think Quinn Snyder helped a lot during towards like the end of last season, and I think he will continue to help them for sure. He's proven how great of a coach he has been when he was a coach for the Jazz. Um, Offensively, I think they're gonna kill it, and I think Quinn Snyder has mentioned that he really wants to improve the defense for this team, which is gonna be very important, especially since your biggest start is Trey Young, which is like the biggest defensive liability in the league. But if they focus on the defense, surround Trey Young with great defenders, and um, continue being a great offense, I can see them improving from last year, and I could see Quinn Snyder winning it if they make a huge leap. It's obviously is a prediction, so we don't know what's gonna happen, but I think I will
Yeah.
go with my dark horse pick for this one and choose Quinn Snyder as my coach of the year for this upcoming season. Any thoughts on
Not bad.
what I just said?
Overall, I think what you said was pretty good and reasonable. Like I think Jamal Mosley is definitely a potential dark horse option, kind of like Darko for me, because it's one of those teams where it's like probably they won't be that good, but potentially they could shock some people if they are able to one, have good team chemistry, and two, be able to stay healthy, of course, and three, depending on like the rest of the conference's health or chemistry and all that outside noise. But so I think he's a good option. Um, Obviously, we both agree on Mike Dagnall because OKC should be able to take the step forward this year. Um, Joe Mazzulla and Mike Malone are a bit of like um, they're a bit of the less likely ones. I think simply due to the fact that both teams are were already really good last season and they're both expected to be at the top of their respective conferences this year. So probably not gonna happen unless they do like groundbreaking regular seasons. Like for example, maybe if one of the teams could break 73-9,
That'd be
then that would be
insane.
worth a yeah, that would be insane, and that would for sure be worth head coach of the year. But aside from that, I feel like because those teams are already expected to be really good, probably I wouldn't put them there. But Quinn Snyder is definitely a really good option because the Hawks obviously underachieved last year. They barely made the playoffs, but should have been higher seed probably. Think that with Quinn Snyder being able to have this team under a full training camp in the summer, they for sure should be better. So I think that's a good pick. Um, so overall, I think that your predictions were good, and I can totally see Quinn Snyder winning the Coach of the Year potentially.
Yeah, let's move on to Rookie of the Year, which I do think this class is gonna be pretty good. That's my guess. I feel like there's a lot of good players like Scoot, uh, the Thompson twins. Shout out to Jaime Jaquez. I think he's gonna be great for the Heat. He's definitely gonna get some playing time, since their roster is not as good as last year and they're kind of aging. And
Him at UCLA.
he came from UCLA. He's Latino, so shout out to him. I love seeing
Definitely.
that representation. But for me personally, I think it's a two-man race. It's going to be a two-man race, and it's going to be against the Twin Towers, I guess. Wemby and Chet. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to be fighting for the Rookie of the Year. But for me personally, I'm a sucker for those highlights. I'm going with Wemby. Like his highlights from preseason is insane. We were just talking about what he did against the Warriors, how he like blocked Clay's 3 point attempt, got the ball on the fast break. He paused to let Clay go by. He gave like a good like 3 seconds before he actually dunked it. Before like the other defender would come in. He basically made the Warriors look stupid, and the Warriors aren't the only victims either. There was like that crazy play where he was able to grab a steal, even though from like the free throw line, even though he was basically by the 3 point line. Like that man is so long, so agile. He's fast. He's a great defender. He's already proven that already. He's blocking crazy shots, and he's a center. He's like 7'4", but he plays like a guard. His dribbling skills are insane. Again, super fast. The way he could honestly defend guards as well, not just big men. So I honestly think Wemby's gonna be Rookie of the Year. Definitely a very safe vanilla choice, but I can't. Uh, I can't just. I kind of have to at this point. He's already insane, but of course we have a whole season to look at. But yeah, uh, who do you think is gonna be Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of good candidates out there. I think that Wemby would be the safe pick because he was number one, a lot of highlight plays and very exciting young talent to watch. Of course, Chet is also officially entering his rookie year because he wasn't able to play last year due to that unfortunate injury during that pickup game where he was trying to guard LeBron. Um, that being said, I would put Chet as a candidate for sure, but his health kind of concerns me because he's so skinny. And one may say the same thing about Wemby, which is reasonable, but the fact that Chet is even skinnier and in that one play that he got injured last offseason, LeBron was even trying to slow down a little bit because he didn't want to get him injured. I can only imagine if he tried guarding, like, for example, Giannis on a fast break dunk. That could completely go wrong if he's, like, trying to draw a charge. That being said, I hope he doesn't do that just for his personal safety. Because first off, he needs to bulk up a bit because that body is gonna be tough to last in the league for that long. Like obviously we know like Kevin Durant when he joined the league, he was also really skinny. He still is, but he did bulk up a bit to the point where he's able to at least still play some decent defense and obviously his offense is so elite that it really doesn't matter how skinny he is. So if Chet is able to come up with some like special tricks up his sleeve like KD is able to, then that would be really great. But in the meantime, his slenderness does concern me. So I just don't know how many games he'll last or if I can actually put him as rookie of the year. So I probably would have to move past Chet. But moving forward, I do think that Scoot Henderson is definitely a good option. Like I heard that some people were arguing that maybe he should have been number one over Wemby, which I don't know if true per se, but like he does look like he would be really good. So I don't necessarily blame the people, especially knowing like maybe people were concerned about Wemby's very slenderness, size, kind of like chest situation. Maybe that's the reason why they were more sold on Scoot. But overall, I think Scoot is definitely a good option to potentially winning Rookie of the Year. I think that Brandon Miller is an option too. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the Hornets when they took him over Scoot because I think that Scoot will be better. But I think that he definitely will still be a really good player, and it's possible that he could win the Rookie of the Year if he really impresses the entire league. But I also have a dark horse pick, and I don't necessarily know how likely it will be, but I do think that Grady Dick will be doing some pretty good things for the Raptors. Like, obviously, he's a really good shooter. And I think that he will be a nice add to that team, especially after losing some key pieces like Fred Van Vliet in free agency and kind of looking like they're possibly going in a rebuilding direction. I think that he's a nice add to the future if they're trying to get younger. Um, but that being said, at the end of the day, I think it's hard not to pick Wemby as the Rookie of the Year candidate simply due to his explosiveness for making big plays, his great defense, and even how fun of a player he is to watch with all those highlight reels. I just think that it's hard not to pick him, although it is the safe pick. I do believe that it is the right pick.
Yeah, I guess we both agree that Wemby is most likely gonna win it. I like the shout out to Grady Dick. Excuse me. Um, who knows if he's gonna be good on the court, but definitely off the court, he's gonna be a vital vibes guy. He's a goofball. He really is. He's very memeable. He's a funny guy. I was just telling you that he was in the new Adonis Graham music video, Drake's son. He was in
It is wild.
Drake's son's music video, which is yeah wild. So if he's not,
Especially knowing he's only 6 years old, like dang, he's
yeah,
already in the music video for a 6-year-old song.
it's crazy. Not gonna lie, I think the song is trash, but he is six. He is six, so I'll cool it. Uh, but
I
yeah,
still need to give it a listen, but not really expecting much from a 6-year-old soundtrack. At least we get to see some comedy with Grady making a special appearance.
yeah. So yeah, although he's not gonna be my rookie of the year, he might be my goofball of the year. So shout out to Grady.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
let's move on to sixth man of the year. Who do you think is gonna win sixth man of the year?
So there's definitely a lot of good options for six man of the year, many of which could have won it last year. To start, I think that Bobby Portis is a good option, and um, arguably speaking, maybe he should have won last year. Um, Another option to is potentially Malik Monk, which won it last year, didn't he? Or am
No,
I
it was
mistaken?
Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon won it last year.
Oh, right, that's correct. Yeah, but Malik Monk was really close last year,
Mm-hmm.
and even the previous year, well, he wasn't necessarily the six man of the year candidate. He obviously we know that was his breakout year when he was on the Lakers team that disappointed unfortunately, but he was one of the bright spots on that team. Eventually, he was signed by Sacramento, got a pretty nice role there too, and proved himself to be a vital piece for that young team. So I think he's an option to win it this year. Um, Another option I have is Emmanuel Quickly from the Knicks. He's proven to be a very good young piece for that team, and I think that he had a pretty good season last year. and can only get better at this point. So I would put him as an option. Another option I have that is a little bit unpredictable depending on if he gets traded to another team or like even if he starts would be Norman Powell. Now, obviously, we've heard the rumors about the Clippers potentially trying to trade for James Harden. And if so, probably Norman Powell would then be sent to Philly or maybe another team if they pull off a three-team trade. But that's where the unpredictableness would come in because we don't know if his role will change with another team if he does get traded. However, if he is still remaining with the Clippers, I think he's shown that he's a really good player in his role and has proven to be very important for that team. So for now, I'm gonna say if Norman Powell does stay on the Clippers or gets put in a similar situation on another team, he's definitely a candidate for Sixth Man of the Year as well. But at the end of the day, if I were to pick one candidate to win the award, I think I'm gonna pick Bobby Portis just because I feel like he was so close last season and he's proven to be so vital for this team for the last few years, dating back to his first season with the team when they won the championship in 2021. I think that for sure, he it's long overdue for him to win this award. It was kind of tough for me picking between him and Malik Monk, but ultimately I just picked Portis because I feel like it's time for him, especially being such a vital piece for this team and very close last season. I think he will finally get over the hump and win the award this year. So, Memo, any thoughts?
Uh, yeah, I think um you named like the right players. They were all on my short list. Um, yeah, I think Emmanuel quickly is gonna do amazing things for the Knicks off the bench. He did so last year. I can see him doing it again. Um, Bobby Portis always kills it off the bench for Milwaukee. He's pretty consistent. He averages like 14 and 10 off the bench. Like, there's starting centers that don't even average like 10 rebounds, and he's doing it off the bench, which I think is very impressive. Uh, and I kind of wanted to go with Bobby, but uh, due to like the history of the award, it usually doesn't go to like a big man. It's usually an award for like
Point.
guards, right? And like spark plug guards who can score a bunch off the bench. Uh, and that's not really Bobby's game. I, even though I do want him to win, I think Malik Monk is gonna have the best case to win it. He was awesome off the bench for the Kings last year, especially during the playoffs. Even though they did lose in the first round, he it was because of Malik Monk. I think he uh, went all out for them. So, although I kind of want to go with Bobby, I think I'm gonna go with Malik Monk for this award.
Honestly, I can't be mad at that because I was pretty back and forth between the two. So I think that it's very possible Malik Monk will win it also.
Yeah, yeah. So, uh, if we don't have anything else to talk about for that, we could move on to most improved player of the year, um, which is very tough to predict, I think. But who do you think is gonna win most
It
improved
is.
player of the year?
Yeah. So for most improved player of the year, I think there's a lot of good candidates out there to choose from. So I like you said, it's tough to pick one, but candidate I have is Austin Reeves. As a Lakers fan, or as Lakers fans, both of us, we know how good of a player he is, how big important he is to our team. He's practically the third star on the team, and he does like a lot of good plays and hustle plays for this team. Now, he did really good last season, and one could argue, like, what more can you ask from him? What more do you want from Austin Reeves? Honestly, though, like, he has room to get better because he's so young. So I would not be shocked if he gets even better to the point where like he does groundbreaking numbers that he could be the crunch time option. And last year he was a few games. Like I remember the one game against Orlando when LeBron and AD were both out. He scored like the last 15 points for the team, I believe, to help the Lakers win the game. That was one of the classic examples of an Austin Reeves masterpiece where he proved that he is capable of leading the team when needed, if possible. And on top of that, in the playoffs, he was really good against Memphis, against the Warriors, even against Denver. Even though the Lakers overall disappointed, I thought he played pretty good. So I think that Austin Reeves is for sure a good option to potentially win Most Improved Player of the Year. Another one is Mikal Bridges. Now he went off last season after he got traded away from Phoenix to Brooklyn, as he's now one of the top options on that Nets team, and that's the reason why I put him as an option here, because now that he's gonna be like practically one of the number one options for an entire season, um, I think that he's gonna make a lot of noise and prove to be a valid option for this award. And obviously, like, you want to take into account several factors, like for example, maybe how the Nets want to run the offense, or like the gaming schemes, or like Mikal Bridges' availability. Now, I think his availability is the least of concerns because if you guys didn't know already, Mikal Bridges hasn't missed a single game in his NBA career. Um, and last season, I think that technically he even played 83 games in the regular season
He did.
because the Suns had played more games than the Nets. So that was pretty cool of him there. Um, so he's the definition of Iron Man. So like I know AC Green's nickname back in the day. That would be the modern day AC Green in terms of availability would have to be Mikal Bridges. So I think that he's definitely a good option for winning this award. Other candidate I have is Tyrese Maxey. Um, I think that especially if depending on the Harden situation, if James Harden is gonna miss a lot of games, that's a great opportunity for Maxey to step up and have more touches and a bigger role for this team. And he already does play a really big role for Philly and is a really good player. But with Harden potentially being off the floor, I can only imagine things being even better. And that's why I have him as an option potentially for helping this team get to the next level. The next option I have is Cade Cunningham. Now, we all know that he missed like the entire season last year, and due to the unfortunate injury he accustomed, and that's why I think that he's an option here because by not even playing a single game, he can only go up from here in my opinion. Now, I do know like the previous season he was really good having in his rookie year when he was available. And I think he was bound to have a really good sophomore year last season had he not gotten hurt. But this year, I think that for sure he will be a candidate for most improved player, barring any further setbacks. If he can stay healthy, he should be really good this season. And the last candidate I have is Alperen Şengün from the Rockets. He was really good last season, and I expect, and the previous season, but even better last season, of course. And I expect him to only go up from here. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen that one meme, but I think it's pretty accurate. You know, the one where they say Jokic is Charizard, Sabonis is Charmeleon, and Şengün is Charmander. I think that's pretty accurate. They're all similar tiers of European big men currently in the league, and Şengün is definitely worthy of being in the conversation, and I think that he has a valid point of potentially being most improved. At the end of the day, if I were to pick one winner for this award, I think I'm gonna go with Mikal Bridges because now that he's gonna have the entire season as one of the number one players on his team, I think that he's gonna get become really good. And as we saw last season, he had like 40-point performances and even 50 points, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I can totally see him repeating those performances. And if he could bring the Nets back to the playoffs, that would be for sure an even bigger case for him to win the award. No, I do know that. Wait, actually, I was about to say something that was more for the defensive player of the year, so I'm gonna stop that point. Um, so Memo, who are your candidates for most improved player of the year?
Yeah, I feel like we have like our list is kind of different. We do have one, I guess, player in common, but or a couple actually, because I don't think Mikal Bridges will win it. He was pretty good towards the end of last year. I don't think his ceiling is like super duper high. I'm sure he's gonna be an all star, but I felt like he already played like an all star last year. I don't think he's gonna surpass that, honestly. But I wouldn't be surprised if he won it. That's for sure. Tyrese Maxey is like a really good uh, pick. He's definitely in my short list because, especially if James Harden does get traded, he's gonna have a lot more touches. He's most likely gonna be the second guy, honestly. Either him or Tobias, but I rather trust Maxi. So,
Yeah, same.
uh, yeah, that's a good pick. I don't know about Cade Cunningham because, yeah, he was injured last year, but due to his injury, he didn't play. So how can you you don't improve that much if you didn't even play last year? If that makes any sense. The Shagun one is a good pick, I think. Uh, he is a really good player. Baby Jokic, I like that Pokemon comparison. I think that's a really good comparison. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, for my list, um, I honestly have some weird ones. Anthony Simon's probably not a weird pick. No more Damian Lillard on the team, so I'm sure he's gonna have more touches and score a lot more, improve his stats. So I think he's in the short list. Jordan Poole is no longer a Warrior. He doesn't have to worry about Draymond punching him in the face anymore. He can go ball out in front of some baddies and score 40 one day, or just recently what he just did. He recently scored 40 on one game, and then the very next game he scored like 7 on like horrendous efficiency. I think he went 2 for 15. Uh, so he's not gonna be my pick, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a finalist. I have Anthony Edwards in my short list, but the more I think about it, it's kind of like a Mikal Bridges situation where like he was an All Star last year. I don't see him uh, surpassing that All Star ceiling. I don't think he's gonna be like MVP level, even though a lot of people do believe so, for some reason. But who I believe is gonna be uh, most improved player this upcoming season. Uh, my Lakers bias is gonna come in because I'm choosing Austin Reeves. Yeah, he's for the regular season. I believe he averaged 13, but when it came to the playoffs, those numbers improved a lot, going basically around the 20 mark. And although he might not, Actually, I do kind of believe that he could score around 20, an average 20 this upcoming season, which would be a huge gap from 13 to 20. And it'd be very impressive doing so with Anthony Davis on the team, with LeBron on the team, somehow scoring and averaging 20 a game would with those two legends on the team would be very impressive, and other scorers like Rui Hachimura on the team as well. Um, so I think not only he's gonna uh, score more points every game, but he's a very efficient guy as well. I think he's gonna continue being very efficient. He's proven that in the playoffs, in the FIBA tournament, he was one of the few highlights from the fourth place finish this past summer. So call me biased, but I think Austin Reeves is gonna be the most improved player of the year.
Yeah, honestly, I can't be mad at that because I think that he's definitely gonna get better and he has a um worthy point for potentially winning the most improved player. So honestly, not a bad pick at all. And as a Lakers fan, I would love for him to win that award too. So I think that that's a very possible option and should be fun to watch.
Yeah, Hillbilly Kobe for most improved player. Let's go. Let's go. Um, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now let's talk about clutch play of the clutch player of the year, which is a very new award. They just gave the first ever award to De'Aaron Fox last season. Who do you think is gonna win this award this season?
So there are definitely some good options out there to choose from. First option, I think will be Luca. Luca Magic. Obviously, he's had some very clutch game winners in the past. And one of the most fun young players to watch in the league. So I think that he's definitely worth the conversation. Another one is Dame. Now we all know Damian Lillard has been one of the clutchest players in the NBA for the recent history, dating back to all those like for example his playoff buzzer beaters in 2014 against Houston when he sent the Rockets home to win the Blazers' first playoff series in however long that was. And then again in 2019 when he sent home the
We're having technical
over Paul
difficulties.
George.
I think we're good. We're good now. You were talking about how he
Okay.
sent Paul George and the OKC Thunder to uh, Cancun, right? He with that
Yeah.
buzzer beater.
And then of course Dame also made a lot of other clutch game winners, which I can't really remember all of them off the top of my head, but point blank is that Dame has been a very clutch player. Um, One of my other options that I thought was maybe a little bit of a more sleeper pick, but still possible, is SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He's proven to be a pretty clutch player too in recent years, and I think that with this young OKC team, it's possible they're going to be in a lot of close games. So there's also going to be a lot of potential opportunities for him to make clutch game-winning shots. At the end of the day, I think that I will probably go with Luca, just because he has been making some really crazy shots in the past and also has been very I guess like he's made some crazy game winners in the past and potentially with this team he'll be putting the team on his back a lot in clutch end game situations. I had a bit of a hard time picking between him and Dame, but ultimately I just went with Luca because I feel like potentially they're gonna be in more close game situations than the Bucks, since the Bucks will probably be better. So I feel like that would be why I pick my Luca as my pick for clutch player of the year. Any thoughts, Memo?
Yeah, I basically agree with this list of players. I think they're all gonna be contenders for this award. Um, uh, yeah, I think you're pretty spot on all of them. At first, I was actually gonna go with Jimmy Butler as my pick because of like how he plays during the playoffs. He's usually the one that's trying the best to win the game. He's always there for clutch situations, and he, you know, a lot of times desperately carries his team to victories. But that's usually during the playoffs. He doesn't during the regular season. The Heat is not that fiery. It's a dim light. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, obviously last year, they made history by making the finals as an ace seed, um, which is was very impressive. But it also did prove the point about the Heat not really being that impressive or fiery in the regular season. And obviously, the previous season, ironically, they were really good in the regular season when they had the first seed in 2022, but then they disappointed in the playoffs that year, ironically. So yeah, as you mentioned, the Heat is one of the teams that you don't necessarily expect as much from in the regular season, but come playoff time, that's when Clutch Jimmy comes on. But continue your point.
yeah. So yeah, I don't this upcoming season, I don't think the Heat are gonna do that well. Honestly, they lost some key pieces. They didn't improve that much. They're just getting older. So although we shouldn't be doubting a Jimmy Butler team, I'm gonna doubt this Jimmy Butler team. I don't think the Heat are gonna do that well this upcoming season. But going back to the topic of clutch play of the year, I was basically in the same boat as you. I was choosing between Dame and Luca, and I think I'm gonna go with Damian Lillard. I think Luca is very clutch. He's had some incredible moments just this past year, but with the addition of Kyrie Irving, I could see him taking some final shots as well. Uh, so combine that with the fact that Damian Lillard will most likely have the ball for crunch time moments for Milwaukee, even though obviously Giannis is the best player on the team. I think Dame is the more clutch player. So I think he will have the ball more in fourth quarter situations.
Like, froze for a second.
You're good. You're good. And yeah, that's why I think for me personally,
Okay,
I will go with Damian Lillard as the clutch player of the year.
not bad. A good pick.
Thank you. We can move on to defensive player of the year. Who do you think is gonna win defensive player of the year?
I think that there's definitely a few good options for defensive player of the year. And the first one I have is Drew Holiday, who I believe had a very good, like, arguably could have won it last year. Now, this guy, he's proven to be a really good the perimeter defender throughout the recent years and for pretty much his entire career. Now that he's on the Celtics, he's practically taking over Marcus Smart's old role. Um, and it's I'm sure that Milwaukee is definitely not happy because they traded him to Portland to get Dame, which is definitely an upgrade overall. But then they do lose defensive presence, which is obviously unfortunate. But on top of that, they have to see him at the end ending up on a rival team in the Eastern Conference that's arguably their biggest threat. It's gotta hurt for sure. So, and then obviously as a Lakers fan, I didn't like seeing that because it would have been my dream if the Lakers could have traded for Drew Holiday, even though I know we would have had to give up a lot. And see him go to Boston for sure hurt. But unfortunately, I will have to say that for Boston, that was a pretty big ad. So because the Celtics got a pretty big ad in Porzingis, but then they also lost Marcus Smart, which was a pretty big loss there. But afterwards, they pretty much made up for the smart loss by getting Drew Holiday, who I would even argue is an upgrade. So that was a pretty big ad for the Celtics, and I think that they for sure got better by a pretty good amount from a team that was already really good. Um, so that being said, I think Drew has a very big point in potentially winning the Defensive Player of the Year. My second option would be Evan Mobley. Now he was pretty close to winning it last year, I think, and he's obviously a pretty good shot blocker. So I think that he is naturally up there as one of the top options to potentially win this award. I don't know if he per se will win it because of all those other good defenders, but I think not mentioning him as an option would be hard, so I'll put him as one of my options. The next option I have is Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is a really good perimeter defender and kind of similar to Drew's situation. He was one of the leaders in steals, I'm pretty sure, and he has proven to be a very vital piece, especially for those Suns teams. And on top of that, we saw how big of a dip the Suns went when they lost him because of how good he is on defense and how limited they were once they traded for Kevin Durant and the rest of the team that they had. I didn't have a lot of depth. So that shows how good of a defender Mikal Bridges is. So that's why I put him as an option here. But lastly, I think that there's a sleeper option. And we all know how good of a player he is when he is healthy. But unfortunately, that has been the issue as of late. But that player that I'm going to give an honorable mention to would be Anthony Davis. Now, if Anthony Davis is able to play the 65 games minimum to win awards, I think that he for sure has to be one of the top picks to winning Defensive Player of the Year. With that being said, at the end of the day, if I were to pick one winner for Defensive Player of the Year, I think I will go with um I'll go with Drew Holiday. Simply because I think that he was so close to winning it these last few years that it's time for him to finally win it all or win it this time. Think about Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of the times you think about the flashier players who are like shot blockers or big names, stuff like that. Think that a player like Drew has proven to be so valuable to his respective teams' success that this is time for him to finally win the award. So, Memo, what do you think? Any thoughts on that, or who's your pick? Or
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your picks. I think it'll be like a three-man race. Uh, I think Mobley is going to be in the conversation and will be in the conversation for years to come. And I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he wins it this year. Even though he's so young, I think he has the talent to win it. Um, I think Drew Holiday has a good chance of winning it if the Boston Celtics remains one of the best defensive team, which I honestly think they will. They already have a crazy uh, backcourt. Um, they have Drew and Derek White as defending the guards. They have um, Jason Tatum and uh, oh my gosh, what's his name? Brown. First save. I
Jaylen
forgot.
Brown?
Jalen Brown. They're both decent defenders as well. Kristaps Porzingis will average like one or two blocks. Um, I think they're gonna be great defensively, and I think Drew Holiday will be the one running the defense, and kind of like a when Marcus Smart won it because the Boston Celtics were so good at defense, he ended up winning it. I think it'll be a similar situation for Drew, but honestly, your sleeper pick is my like final pick. I think Anthony Davis will win it. I am being very, 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 very optimistic, and I think Anthony Davis is going to be healthy this upcoming season. And if he's healthy, not only will he be uh, defensive player of the year, or at least one of the best defenders in the league, but he will also be one of the best players in general, I think. So that is who I am going with for defensive player of the year.
Like your optimism that AD will stay healthy and win the award this year. And I definitely hope you're right, obviously being Lakers fans. Um, but obviously he does have a little bit of a target on his back because recent narratives that AD has been getting injured a lot. It's hard to necessarily depend on him to stay healthy, but if he does, I think he has a very good case in being the winner. So I like the optimism and I like the bold pick.
Thank you. Thank you. We can now move on to MVP. Who will be the most valuable player of the year? Who do you think, Hoops?
So I think there's several good options of players that would be really good this season and potentially be MVP. I think the obvious ones would be like Jokic having won 2 years in a row prior to this season, which, in my opinion, I think he very likely would have won again if not for the voters' fatigue. Though Joel Embiid did play really good in the regular season, so I do give him credit. I do mention regular season because we know playoffs is a different story, but it is a regular season award. Now, I think that Giannis is another candidate because we all know that he's also another one of the arguably greatest players in the league. And I know a lot of people have the debate between Jokic and Giannis for 1A, 1B. That being said, I think that for sure Giannis is a potential option to be picked for the number three, I mean, for the MVP award in this upcoming season. Um, I think that Jason Tatum is an option too, is because the Celtics are arguably going to be barring any chemistry issues or horrible injuries, they'll likely at least be a top three at worst team in the Eastern Conference. So, as we know, usually MVPs have to be on one of the top teams in the league. So that's why I think that there's a very good case that Tatum will win it because his team will be very good, and I'm sure he'll have a pretty good regular season. Um, But I also have a sleeper pick for MVP that's not quite as likely. But if he's able to carry his team to very high, like a very high ceiling, who knows? And that pick I'm gonna make is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, I don't necessarily believe that OKC is gonna have that high of a seed in the standings or stuff of that nature. But somehow SGA is able to do something very groundbreaking, similar to what Westbrook did in 2017, which is definitely a long shot for something like that nature to happen. But if either that does happen or Shea is able to, Shea and Mike are able to shock the entire world and lead OKC to a top seed in the conference, and I could totally see SGA being a candidate for MVP simply due to the fact that he clearly has the capabilities, but definitely one of the bigger hot takes here. Um, at the end of the day, if I were to pick a winner though, it's hard, but I think I'll go with Jokic just because I think that he is the top player in the league, and I think that Denver is a practically guaranteed top seed. Any thoughts, Memo?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you mentioned the right people. Maybe not SGA. I think he does have to do a lot more to be considered an MVP in the league. But mentioning Giannis and Jokic is definitely the right move. Uh, I can totally see either of them winning their third MVP. And if I were to choose from both of them, I'd probably choose Jokic. I think he would be the one to win the third MVP, especially since last year I think he was kind of robbed. Uh, I think like it was kind of a petty MVP for Joel Embiid since he's been uh, fighting for it for so long. They kind of just gave it to him at the end, mostly because Jokic didn't care towards the end, and he really did. So I think that's how he won the award last year. So I could see Jokic winning this year based off of being robbed last year. But honestly, I do think voter fatigue is a thing, and I think we're gonna get a new MVP this season. Uh, Joel Embiid is not going back to back. He definitely is not. So I think this upcoming season, Jason Tatum is gonna be MVP. As much as I personally do not like Jason Tatum, we've talked about this before. I don't like his game at all. Um, Not only just because he's a Celtic, but I honestly think he's like one of the most boring players in the league. But I can totally see him win MVP. I think the Celtics are gonna be amazing this upcoming season. He's never won the award. That's gonna help him um, with his chances of winning the award. And there's other players like Luca who are gonna play like MVPs, but they're not gonna have a team as good as the Celtics. So, um, yeah, I think Jason Tatum is gonna win MVP this year. That's my prediction.
Not a bad prediction. I think that I could totally see Tatum winning the MVP.
All right, we're almost done. This is the last thing we're predicting. We're predicting the finals winners. Who do we think is gonna win the NBA championship? And we're basically gonna choose two teams, one from the East, one from the West, and predict which one is gonna win overall, and go over who we believe will be the finals MVP if that team won. So yeah, who are your finals winners?
This one is definitely a tough one to predict before the season, especially knowing that you haven't really seen a lot of the teams play yet. And we don't know how factors are going to weigh in, like team chemistry, injuries, and stuff of that nature. I mean, of course, we know what happened in the past when we tried to come up with like finals matchups in the off season that clearly never came close to fruition due to chemistry issues. Like for example, in 2021, the Lakers and Nets, both of those seasons, team seasons ended in absolute disasters while they looked great on paper. It's hard to necessarily predict things like that. If I were to come up with a prediction, um, and this one is definitely a little bit more of a bias optimism pick on my end, being a Lakers fan. But I will have to say that my predicted finals matchup is gonna be the Lakers versus the Bucks, and I have the Lakers winning that matchup. And for my finals MVP, I have LeBron James winning it. LeBron James winning his fifth championship, and the Lakers winning their 18th championship to surpass the Boston Celtics for most in NBA history. Memo, what's your prediction?
First of all, that would be a dream come true as a Lakers fan. Um, Not only the Lakers finally surpassing the amount of championship totals, beating the Celtics, but it'd also be cool to see LeBron James being Finals MVP, most likely being the oldest Finals MVP. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he would be the oldest. That'd be cool to see.
I think
Uh,
so.
I had the Nuggets and the Bucks going to the finals, even though I think the Lakers could definitely make it to the finals. I think the Nuggets uh, have they lost some key pieces with Bruce Brown, Jeff Green. I don't think they did much to try to improve on their roster. But with that said, they do have like the best player in basketball, and Jamal Murray is basically an all star. He might not have played in an All Star game, but he plays like an All Star. So I can see them going back to the finals, and that's who I have for my prediction. I have the Nuggets facing the Bucks, but I had the Bucks winning it all and Giannis being Finals MVP. I think that duo of Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo is unmatched. It's good. They just mesh so well together that I think this team will turn out really good. I think they're gonna be able to beat the Celtics, and I think they're gonna be able to beat the Nuggets as well. So I think the Bucks will win the championship this upcoming season, and I think Giannis will be Finals MVP. Any closing thoughts?
I'll start out by saying that's a pretty good pick, honestly. I definitely had Milwaukee as a option to win it all too. Matter of fact, I probably had them as my number two option. And then Denver definitely would have been up there too. Like I know it's tough to win back to back. And if, especially if it's not a super team, like we know how like the Warriors did when they were a super team, the Lakers did when they were a super team, and the Bulls did back in the day when they were a super team. Um, Obviously we know like especially for non-super teams, winning back to back is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I think Denver is definitely capable of doing it. At the end of the day, though, I think that our options, the Lakers and the Bucks, are very possible options of winning it all. So I think that obviously it's hard to predict these things before seeing these teams play a single game. But I think that these are good picks we made and should be a fun season coming very soon in 2 days on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Uh, Before we end things off, I think we should quickly summarize our final picks. So I can go first. For Coach of the Year, I have Quinn Snyder. Rookie of the Year, I have Victor Wembanyama. For Sixth Man of the Year, I have Malik Monk. For Most Improved Player of the Year, I have Austin Reeves. For Clutch Player of the Year, I have Damian Lillard. Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going with Anthony Davis. For MVP, I'm going with Jason Tatum. And for the finals winners, I think the Bucks are gonna win the finals, and Giannis is gonna be Finals MVP. Uh, do you want to summarize yours really quickly?
Yes, sir. For Coach of the Year, I have Mike Dagnall of the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the Coach of the Year. For Rookie of the Year, I have Victor Wembanyama winning the Rookie of the Year. For Sixth Man of the Year, I have Bobby Portis winning it. For Most Improved Player of the Year, I have Mikal Bridges winning. For Clutch Player of the Year, I got Luka Doncic winning. For Defensive Player of the Year, I got Drew Holiday. For MVP, I got Nikola Jokic. And for Finals winner and Finals MVP, I got the Lakers and LeBron James winning the Finals MVP.
I like how our uh final like predictions are very different, other than Wemby. I think it's interesting how that went about. But yeah,
Oh,
first
that's good.
episode basically done. How do you feel?
I think that it's going to be a fun journey to come. It's always fun talking hoops. Now that we're able to talk about it officially and make it a weekly thing, I think it's even more exciting. And it's going to be fun being able to summarize all of the weekly games, top events, and pretty much trade rumors and everything that's going around the league. And we're going to make sure to provide as much entertaining content as possible too. For example, top players list like the point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, centers, man, and stuff of that nature. So yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, I think this will be very exciting. Not only will the season be exciting, but I think this podcast journey will also be exciting. We're gonna have a lot of content out weekly not only with this podcast, the video podcast, the audio podcast, but we're gonna try to make content on the other social medias that we'll have linked down below. Um, and yeah, I think that's it. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but yeah, next week we will go over the first week of the NBA. We will also try to rank um, the Western and Eastern Conference from worst to best. That's one of our goals. But I think we are done. So I appreciate everybody giving this a listen. Um, any last words that you want to say?
Yeah, thank you guys for watching our first episode. We're really excited to provide you guys weekly content, and also looking forward to this NBA season. Um, if you guys like our content, please make sure to follow us on all our socials and on the video. You can give us a like, comment, and subscription, and we look forward to providing more content.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.